Welcome to Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast, where we hear stories from fellow seamstresses just like you. We're able to share their success stories. We learn from wedding industry pros for the best business tips, and we get to hear from fellow sewists and crafters to hopefully inspire our creativity and our love for sewing. I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're a bridal seamstress, I'd also like to invite you to check out our Bridal Seamstress business membership. We have a community of women that can testify to the power of genuine connection, friendship, vulnerability, the power of our six-figure seamstress method, and a genuine connection found in a business mentorship like this. All right, let's dive into the episode. Hey friends, welcome back to Secrets of Bridal Seamstress. Well, it's December and I was just in the middle of wrapping some presents to get them out the door and dropped off at the post office today. But I texted our podcast producer, Haley, and I was like, listen, we've got to get this particular episode ready and posted before the end of the year because it is such an important topic. So I stopped my wrapping for this, okay? But it is worth it. Are you on the edge of your seat to learn what this topic is that I just had to tell you about before the end of the year? Well, it's fitting packages and your bridal investment guide. So if you've been around for a while, you are familiar with this topic and you've heard me talk about it before. Maybe you even clicked the link to sign up for that private podcast series all about creating your own fitting packages. So why am I coming back to talk about it again? Couple reasons. So number one reason is that every single person, I'm not even exaggerating. Like literally I should have started collecting sound clips and the emails that I get from people. Every single person who has implemented this in their business that I know of, I know there's so many that I don't know of, have come back to me and said, I wish I had done this sooner. Like what took me so long? I'm looking back at all this money that I had left on the table for years. And I'm like, yes, I know. I know. So that is the number one reason. And number two, again, these people who have implemented this into their business wished that they had started it at the beginning of the year because at the end of the year, they look back at their revenue and they're like, oh my gosh, when I started implementing fitting packages, I saw this immediate jump in my revenue and I can't wait to see what it's going to look like if I start from the beginning of the year. So I want you to have all the information so you can decide if this is something that you should, which it is, something that you should implement in your business for 2026. So you can just start the new year with something brand new and have the confidence to introduce this to your 2026 clients. So let me explain what the fitting packages are. And if you click the link in the show notes, there is a link to our private podcast series that will tell you everything you need to know, the step-by-step guide, the full methodology, all the templates and all the testimonials about fitting packages and why you should be implementing them in your business like literally this week so you can start introducing them to clients in 2026. Okay. So if we go like way back to the beginning of Sweet Francis Sewing Co., I started working with brides in 2017. Before that, I was doing some like custom quilts. I was doing random alterations in addition to being a middle school teacher, right? So in 2017 was when I first started working with brides and I thought, okay, this is awesome. I want to do more of this. 2017, I also had a full custom wedding gown. That was my first of four, and then I was done. That's not my cup of tea, but it might be for you, and that's great. And you can use fitting packages for your custom gowns as well. But I had my first brides in 2017, and then 2018, I was seeing more brides, but I was still taking, random alterations and home projects. I remember recovering couch cushions. That was interesting, but I learned so much, and wow, that piping looked amazing. If you've ever created couch cushions, it's like you feel so good when that's done. So I did some of that. I remember one particular human, I didn't know the person. I think they found me on Facebook Marketplace or something. They dropped off a bag of like a garbage bag full of cloth diapers, with the Velcro, and I had to replace the Velcro on all of these cloth diapers. And I think I charged her like $50. Like I didn't know what the heck I was doing and I didn't know how to charge. And I was taking whatever. So 2019 was when I started working with my first business coach. Actually, I think it was like the tail end of 2018. And then 2019 was when I was really seeing the fruit of working with this coach. Her name was Stephanie Booth. She spoke at our very first Secrets of Bridal Seamstress retreat. She's awesome. And it was my first time working with a business coach, which is mind blowing because you have somebody who can see beyond what you can see in yourself. So they see your potential, they have, all these ideas of like how you could increase your revenue and also how to help your business to stand out. Well, depending on what business coach you work with, they're going to focus on different things. But Stephanie really helped me with just my business mindset and creating boundaries and having a really clear distinction of what I wanted my business to look like and feel like for clients, and then also how I experienced it as the business owner, right? And all these things that I like literally never thought twice about. So she was the one who was talking me through how do I differentiate Sweet Francis Sewing Co. from other alterations businesses in town? And at the time, I knew I just wanted to focus on bridal, and there were no other strictly bridal seamstresses in the area. And I knew if I closed my eyes and I imagined like what the fittings would feel like, the clients that were coming to me, what they were like, what kind of work I'd be accepting. Again, I had enough experience to know like I didn't want to do full customs again. I really wanted to drop the cloth diapers. I knew enough of what I didn't want. And of course, every year I learn more and more of like what I want and what I don't want. But I remember that being a pivotal year for me in 2019. And we talked about how to make a distinction, so that Sweet Francis could stand out, and then also how to kind of weed through all of these inquiries that were coming in so that before a client even booked with me, they kind of had a couple steps to go through before they had full access to my calendar and like saved a place in my pre-bookings, whatever. So working with her, we took a step back and looked at like the wedding industry as a whole. And what we noticed with other vendors that was pretty common, but we didn't see in any bridal seamstresses or sewists, because even like I remember back then, like bridal sewing, at least on the interwebs and on social media, it was not like a thing. I had one friend on Instagram who was a bridal seamstress, Andra, hello. That was it. Like she and I were the only ones that I can remember who were just like posting about or that I could find. And that's not saying much because I didn't know how to really use Instagram. So there were probably a bunch of you posting about bridal sewing in 2018, but I just didn't know you were there. So, at least from what we could find, that was a long rabbit trail, sorry. Other wedding vendors had what they called packages, like service packages, but bridal seamstresses or alterations specialists didn't have that. And when you look at, so what we were finding is that in addition to the service that these vendors provided, there was also like an experience package. Like what is included in this? And Stephanie had been a wedding photographer, so she had a lot of experience with this, and she's like, this is what's included, with the engagement package. This is what's included in the wedding and engagement and, like your 1 year anniversary package, in addition to the cost of the photography hours. So I kind of worked with that and created fitting packages for Sweet Francis Sewing Co. And it was like a total game changer because number one, it raised my revenue immediately. And number two, it really helped me only attract a specific kind of client, the brides who had a budget that I was looking for and who wanted to invest in their alterations experience. They didn't just want to like go to the mall and get it done. Like they wanted it to be an investment, just like other wedding vendors were an investment for them. And I know you're listening and you're like, hey, that sounds pretty duh. I know, but at the time it wasn't. Okay. It was a big deal. And I was really nervous to start it because I didn't know that anybody else was doing that. And I thought, okay, like who am I? I'm like a newbie, and we were in a rental and I just felt like who's gonna pay to come here? Like, I don't know. And I remember the first booking that I had with that investment guide that I sent out, and it felt so good. Like, hey, they will come. Like I can create the boundaries and they will still come. And my packages have shifted since then, but that was kind of the beginning of a new era in Sweet Francis Sewing Co. And then I refined it. I refined my packages. I also refined how I educated my clients about the packages with an investment guide and the steps of like from when they first inquired with me to when they received the investment guide to how they picked their package, all that was refined along the way. And once I started Secrets of Bridal Seamstress, I knew I wanted to get this information about fitting packages out like immediately. 2021 was the first masterclass with fitting packages, and again, since then it's been refined. But instead of it being an annual, I think I did it once a year, like twice a year. No, because I would do the fitting package masterclass once a year, and then I did the pre-booking masterclass the other time. So that was like just a few years of that. And I'm like, okay, I actually want this to be available forever because it's such a valuable resource. And like I said, like everybody who uses it comes back and says, where I just added $30,000 like without taking on more dresses to my annual revenue. Like this is crazy, So I know that it works. It's not just like, oh, here's an idea that you should consider. It's like this is a proven method that we're seeing has been adopted like across the industry, and I'm pumped. And it's free. Like it's totally free. Like I'm so proud that like this is like our SBS staple. Like our members all use packages, and if not, they're like waiting for the new year to start implementing them because it's the first step that sets you apart, that can differentiate your business and really clarify like who you want to serve, how you want to bring in the clients. And it also educates your clients of like how you are different from your colleagues or like what sets your business experience apart. And what's funny is I feel like everybody kind of goes the same, like, I don't think so. Like at first there's that hesitation of like, I don't want to charge for fittings. Or the best line is, I already buffer that into my costs. I already like include that in my prices. And I'm like, oh, do you? Okay. Okay. Let's say that you do. Do your clients see that your fittings are, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe some of you are listening and you're like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Fitting packages are not an all-inclusive alterations package. What they are is it is the cost of fittings, essentially. Package number one includes, your 2 to 3 customized gown fittings, like 45 to 60-minute appointments. That's what you're paying for. You pay, like, you're getting my time, you're getting an exclusive experience, you're not sharing the appointment time with anybody else, you have undivided attention. That's what the client is paying for. And that's going to have like your introductory price. Package number two is going, for me at least, it includes their multiple fittings and steaming services for the gown and for the veil. You can substitute this for another thing. Like this is just an example of what I do. And guess what? In the private podcast series, you will have examples of everybody's packages, like of how they build their packages, because not everybody does it like me. They made it unique for their own business. And then my third package includes the 3 fittings, steaming services, and cleaning and preservation services. Other people substitute some of those things for like a custom veil or like a garter or an emergency kit. Or in the past, I included like a gown reveal party. I don't do that anymore, but so there's different things that you can swap in and out for. But the big idea is that there's a separate cost for fittings that is different from the cost of alterations. So so now I can kind of go back to what I was saying before I didn't catch you up to what I was talking about. So when people are like, oh yeah, I include that already in my prices, I'm like, okay, sure you do. We all think that we do, right? And maybe you do, but does your client know that? And there is a benefit to your client knowing that there is a separate cost for the appointment times, because then they're going to value those appointment times and they're going to know, okay, if I cancel, I'm going to have to pay an additional fee. Or, okay, I'm paying for my appointments. You know that I'm going to show up, or like, honor the time that I've committed myself to. When they see that they're paying for your time, there is a difference in how they're treating the professional that they're working with. Like, I know that I feel the same way when I'm working with somebody who's charging me for their time. Like, okay, I don't want to take advantage of the situation. I want to get, what I'm paying for. I want to show up on time, whatever. So there is a different experience that seamstresses have with clients who are paying for fittings. And you might be listening and you're like, my clients treat me like a professional and I don't charge for fittings. And I get that. I'm just sharing what I've heard from other seamstresses who have implemented this, and they're comparing their past experience and then once they started charging for fittings, what that experience is. So I just want to encourage you, just consider it. Listen to the private podcast series. See if it's something that you could include. I've also heard, oh, I don't want to have something that people have to purchase. I get that, because you feel like it's another thing to sell. At some point, as your business grows, it is healthy to have some resistance for the clients that want to book with you. So we actually talk about this subject a lot in SBS, like the idea of almost like adding a resistance to your inquiries, because when you are a growing business and you're thriving and your books are filled up, there is a point where it's time to raise your prices. And we compare it to, I mean, as a retired teacher, I talk about the bell curve involved in writing tests. So there's kind of like a bell curve involved in setting your prices and your inquiry process for potential clients. That's a totally different subject. I don't want to overwhelm you with that. But the main gist is there is a point where it's healthy for there to be some resistance to those inquiring clients. You know what? I'm not going to keep going into like the pros and cons of the fitting packages, because guess what? It is all included in that private podcast series all about fitting packages and developing a bridal investment guide. So I just want you to click on that, sign up, get the free series, make your educated decision, because you're going to hear from other women who have implemented this in their business, who had the same maybe drawbacks that you had or hesitations. And I will let them speak for it, because they share their, and what's really cool is these are women who have just different, they're in different demographics, they have different ideal clients, they have different work that they want to keep bringing in. Obviously, they're all bridal seamstresses, but they have different focuses within their own businesses. And they're sharing about why they made the decision to include fitting packages. And I think it's worth a listen. Okay. Your investment guide is how you communicate the fitting packages to your clients. And let me tell you, this should not be on your website for the world to see. This should not be like just shared all willy-nilly. There's a process and there's a method in how and when you share this with your clients, because it's part of creating this exclusive, beautiful experience for your clients. So that's also included in the private podcast series, is like how to introduce this to clients, when in the timeline should they receive the investment guide. And guess what? You're even going to have a free template to use for your own business. So what's kind of funny is if you kind of look across the board, if you compare this with other seamstresses who have been implementing this, it's like the same template. We're all using the same thing. It's just tweaked to our own particular brand. And it's great. Like, I want you to use this resource, and I want you to make more money in your business, and I want you to be paid for your time. And there's like literally no strings attached. There's no fee for this. You don't need to be an SBS member. I just want our community as a whole to be, I want your time to be respected. So please, like, use this free resource, or at least consider it, because I do think it's going to be a game changer for your business. And this isn't just an idea. It is a proven method that so many seamstresses around the country, around the world, are using, and it's working. So please take advantage of this. Okay. If you have any questions too, as you're working through it, you have my email. I'll be sending you emails and information so that you have the templates and all the information that you need. And then you have access to me to ask questions as you're putting it together. But like I said, I wanted to make sure that you had everything that you needed to know before the start of a new year, so you can include this methodology in your business for 2026. And trust me, I've heard all of the reasons not to. And I don't think there's a reason not to. Okay, I've heard it all. And what's really funny, and I love this, it will never get old to me, is when people who have been like, no, 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 oh, maybe. And then they start using it, and I'm like, see, I told you. It's awesome. It is awesome. And it'll change the way you experience your business and the way that your bank account is going to experience your business. So whether I hear from you or not that you've changed your mind, I hope that I do, because it's so fun. I'm like, see, it's a huge blessing. Like, I'm so glad that you're using that. You don't need to call it fitting packages. You can call it a booking fee, or you can call it whatever. You don't need to have it called like an investment guide. You could have it be, here's your menu. I don't know. Like, if you don't want to use my verbiage, I get it, but please use the free tool. Okay. Include this in your business, and 2026 will yield, like I said, like 20 to 30K plus. It depends on how many clients you're booking a year, and obviously the prices of your packages. It's up to you, but why not? Why not give it a shot? Let me know if you have any questions, okay? You can DM me on Instagram at Secrets of Bridal Seamstress. You can email me. My email is associated with the podcast. You can sign up, obviously, for that free podcast series and just start listening, and you're going to get all those examples. I'm very excited for you. So I hope you give it a shot. And I'm going to be posting a lot on social media about this too. I'm going to be sharing some testimonials from women who have used this in their business because it's not just me, okay? There are others who can speak to this, and I just want you to have the best year. And it's not just about the money. Like, obviously, that's a huge perk because it's not just about the money. Like, yes, obviously, having that additional income is awesome. Why would you not? But it's also about developing a very specific client that you want to attract, knowing what you want to see come through your door, what kind of business you want to curate, what kind of experience you want to curate, and developing packages that reflect that and that bring in those particular clients. I just want to end with a little story of someone who I worked with this year. When we first met, she was a new member to SBS. And so we were talking through her business and kind of her business plan. And she had told me that she had recently come out of like the worst year in her business. She had really difficult clients. She had a few no-shows. They didn't care to reschedule. But the biggest thing that she noticed is that they kept coming back with complaints. And I don't know if you've ever had a bride complain after the wedding. It's like the worst experience, right? And so that's what she was facing. Like she had like half a dozen of those last season. And it was like, what is happening? She was kind of at a point where it's like, who am I bringing into my business, you know? And what's funny is a lot of times when women join SBS, they've already implemented fitting packages and they're kind of like, okay, like what's the next thing, you know? So during this call, I had asked her like, okay, you're using fitting packages, right? And she's like, no. And, then we went through the reasons of why she wasn't implementing them. And she was like, which I already shared in this podcast episode of what those drawbacks are. And I was like, okay, let's just try it. Let's give it 6 months and see how that affects your business. So we, put the menu together, her investment guide menu, we created the packages, and I'm happy to report that it's not just the money. Okay. That's the biggest thing about this story. It's not just about the additional income that she had, but it's the difference in clients that she's experiencing. Could you say that, okay, it just happened, she just happened to have a bad season? Yeah, sure. I mean, I get it. Like sometimes you just have a rough year, but she's consistently seeing that clients are showing up. They're communicating differently. There's no more texting. That was another thing we had to work through. But when they show up, they are respecting her time, her expertise, her team, and they are fully aware that they are investing in a chosen experience. Okay. It's not just like, oh, she's available, so I'm going to book with her. They were willing to, pay extra to work with her. And because they paid extra, they're going to value that time. So I wanted to share that with you because I understand the hesitations and you're not alone if you feel like I don't want to do that, or I don't want to charge my clients, or I'm not going to have anybody book with me. The first client that booked with her fitting packages, that was a text that I got like, oh my gosh, guess what had happened? I got a package booked. I'm like, yes, of course you did. So it's not just about the additional revenue. Obviously, I get really excited about that, but it's about creating something special and being intentional about the business you're creating and the clients that you have walking through the door. And honestly, adding a paywall does make a difference. Tell me what you think. Like I know I mentioned this before, but like I want this to be an open dialogue with you. And I know it can be scary, but I really want you to consider adding this to your own business. Okay, maybe I'll hear from you soon. I don't know. I got to go back to wrapping my presents and getting to the post office before it closes, but I really wanted to get this message before the beginning of 2026. All right, go ahead and scroll down to the show notes and find the link for the private podcast series, and you'll get that first episode sent your way. All right, I'll see you guys next week.